Hey girl, I'm Jamie Constantine. I'm a wife, mom of 2 teenage boys, and a multi-passionate female entrepreneur. I have a vision of a world of confident women who love themselves wholeheartedly. This is my new happy place, and I hope that it becomes yours too. So toss your hair up in that messy bun, grab your cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's dive in. Welcome to the Happy Girl Podcast. Looking for a little retail therapy and want to shop from the comfort of your own home? Head on over to happygirlpodcast.com, click on our sponsors, and check out None of Your Business Boutique. Enter discount code HAPPYGIRL to save $5 off your purchase. Hey ladies, welcome back to another episode of the Happy Girl Podcast. This is a truly special episode that we have for you today. We are recording in the amazing The Called Podcast studio right here in Newport Richey, Florida. And today I have two amazing guests from the Pasco County Commission on Human Trafficking. I have Jessica and Stephanie here to speak with us today. Two really great ladies that's going to share a lot of great resources and some knowledge for all of us about just what we can look for with our kids. Our kids are back in school these days. And, you know, even if you don't have a child in school, if you have a teenager, this is going to be a great episode for anyone to tune into. So first, I would like to say hello to Jessica Mitch and Stephanie Vazquez. Jessica Mitch is a transition specialist with Pasco County Schools, and she works with students who are affiliated with the Department of Juvenile Justice. And what she does is she helps transition them back into their schools. So Jessica has a master's in counselor education, and she's currently attending St. Leo University for her doctorate in educational leadership. Her husband and she adopted a 4-year-old daughter last year, and she's had her through foster care since the age of 11 months. Her daughter has completed their little family, and they are so blessed. Jessica, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm really excited to dive in with everything with you. Before I go ahead and introduce Stephanie, I would love to hear what your favorite cup of coffee drink is, if you do have a favorite cup of coffee.
So I don't drink coffee, but I love Dunkin' Donuts hot chocolate with whipped cream. So those cool mornings on my way to work, I'll usually stop and get that and some munchkins.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. Hot chocolate is great. And it is fall. We're in Florida. Exactly. But, you know, hopefully that is still something very yummy to treat yourself to. That's awesome. And I would love to introduce you all to Stephanie Vazquez. Stephanie is a real estate professional. She's based here in Tampa, Florida, and she is the former vice president of the U.S. Institute Against Human Trafficking. And that's the U.S. Institute. It's a national nonprofit organization working to end human trafficking in the United States. And in addition to her work at the U.S. Institute, Stephanie serves as the Public Information Officer for the City of Zephyr Hills as president of the board of directors for the NISSI project, vice chair of the Pasco County Commission on Human Trafficking, and as an advisory board member for the Post 9/11 Veterans Nonprofit Community Organization. She's also a published author, and I would love to hear what your book is that you wrote. And while serving in the United States Air Force, she earned her bachelor's degree in behavioral science. And Stephanie also holds a master's degree in entrepreneurship and applied technologies from the University of South Florida. Thank you so much for being here. And I cannot wait to dive in to get all of this information from you amazing ladies. And Stephanie, you know, I'm going to have to ask you what your favorite cup of coffee is too.
Well, thank you so much for having us. I think we're all really excited to share with the community about human trafficking and what to look for just to try to keep more kids safe in Florida and beyond. So my favorite coffee right now, because I live in Florida and it's almost always hot, I'm into the iced coffee, but I brew it myself with an espresso machine. I just do ice, coffee, cream, and sugar, and I feel like it rivals Starbucks.
Oh, there you go. That's great when you can make it yourself. Yeah. And then you don't have to worry about driving anywhere. You've already got it. If you're on the go, you just take it with you and you're set. That's awesome. Well, A lot of people may have not heard of Pasco County Commission on Human Trafficking. And I'm wondering if even our listeners know that that's something that even exists. Now, I'm so thankful that we can start getting the awareness and getting the conversation going here at a local level. Can you tell us exactly what or who Pasco County Commission on Human Trafficking is?
Sure. Yeah. So for anybody who's not local, Pasco County is in the Tampa Bay region in Florida. And so the Pasco County Commission on Human Trafficking was established in 2014 through our Board of County Commissioners. And it has 13 members specifically chosen to represent different sectors of the community that are important parts of combating human trafficking. Sectors like the school district, law enforcement, child welfare, behavioral health, things like that. And what the commission does is we have this vision, and it's to work toward a day when no person within Pasco County is compelled to work or engage in a commercial sex act against their will. And the way we do that is by education, awareness, advocacy, and collaboration. And some of the things that we do in order to accomplish those goals are public service announcements. We do interviews like this and talk to the media to generate awareness, posters for schools, educational materials, events, and we've even done billboards and bus wraps that, drive around the county and things like that. So thus far, we've made over 4 million impressions with our awareness generating content within Pasco County and actually several counties in the area. And we've trained over 5,000 people on human trafficking awareness. So that's a little bit about the commission.
That is incredible. And the goal to be able to get to that point, I mean, that would be amazing if that was a reality and a possibility. And I think whatever anybody can do to take the steps to get there is big. You guys are already doing such an impactful thing for our community, and there's so much that goes into that. It's nice to see that you're collaborating with other people in the community, because it takes those different groups and organizations and individuals in order to get that message out there. So it does take work, and it does take a lot of people involved to do that. And I think that's why this is such an educational process for each of us. And hopefully we can all see how we can help get that going even further, and, getting those numbers, up there as far as the people that are aware, and then down there as far as the people that are actually involved in that as well. Now, our kids are back in school. I mean, it has been a crazy past year or so. Some of our kids have stayed home and some of them are still staying home. But in the topic of school-age children, Jessica, can you tell us a little bit of what's really happening at a school level and how everything is really incorporated for our kids there?
Sure. So as a mom and then working with students in Department of Juvenile Justice, it's definitely important to get the word out so that they know what's going on, because so many people think of big cities when they think of human trafficking, not knowing that it is right here in our own, city happening in our county. So the commission was instrumental in getting curriculum into the schools so that students are getting educated early on. So we use the curriculum Unlocking Freedom, and it's used in 6th grade health classes and in 9th grade hope classes. And then now we also have it with our mental health curriculum. So in the spring, every student, so 6 through 12, gets this curriculum with the Unlocking Freedom, as well as mental health and substance abuse awareness as well. So we're getting that word out there more and more. We also had students that created posters. So those are around campuses that give the hotline number and kind of things to look for, to make, again, that awareness out there. So definitely trying to do everything that we can. And in the past, the commission has trained staff as well. And we're in the process of looking at setting up another training, because we have a lot of new staff and just new information to be able to share.
Okay. And that is for every school in Pasco County. And that's strictly from 6th to
12th grade.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then as far as any of the younger ages are concerned, is there anything in place for that?
Yes. So in elementary, they do the Safer, Smarter Kids curriculum. And so that's all about sexual abuse prevention. And then they also have components of human trafficking in that as well, so that it's more geared to the smaller children, because you don't want to give them too much information at that age, but you do want them to be aware of kind of that stranger danger, but also realizing it's not necessarily strangers that can be involved in this.
Okay. I think that's so interesting because I don't know if a lot of parents know that this is the kind of stuff that they do have access to at school. And I think, like you're saying, when we think of that, when you hear the word human trafficking, we do think of like that broader aspect of it, like nationally, or even, I mean, I think sometimes we skip over to internationally too, right? Rather than understanding that we have to start here at a smaller scale, right, within our own neighborhoods. Now, with the schools giving out that information and having the knowledge out there for the students, and you're training the teachers to give them the information, I think it also probably flows into the parents in the neighborhood too, right? How do they get access to that information? And then how are they made aware that the students are learning these things in school as well?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. We actually have a partnership with the Tampa Bay Times. And so we are going to be having a newspaper that's going to be going out both in person, like paper, and also online. That's going to be all geared towards parents. So It's going to have information in there about what human trafficking is, as well as about the curriculum, and also about the warning signs and what they can look for. We're going to have survivors that are going to be able to provide information as well, to be able to hear from their own words kind of what they experienced.
Wow. Okay. That is so interesting. Now, what are some of the other kinds of things that happen, even outside of the schools that we can do, maybe even at a more local level? If there's any kind of information that you can share with us about what's going on at a local level. Stephanie, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about some of those topics that are going on in our neighborhoods, or anything that you guys are doing locally to spread awareness, or, like you're saying, I guess, get involved with like training or giving law enforcement that education piece. How would you say that works out? Because I think, even though you stated at the beginning that that you're collaborating with people in the community, how does each part of that really work, and how is that kind of structured?
So there's a lot of different collaborations that are necessary in order to spread awareness to the right people about what human trafficking is, especially in how it relates to our youth. And so the Pasco County Commission on Human Trafficking, like Jessica said, we're working with the Tampa Bay Times to create basically a parent pamphlet to go out to parents in newspapers, and then potentially even through the school district or in other ways to get to the parents. And so that's a way of communicating directly to parents. And then the curriculum is a way of communicating directly to children. And then we do different events and things like that. We'll have tables at events that may or may not be related to human trafficking, but are related to child welfare, or even faith-based opportunities where they have events that are informational sessions and things like that. So the commission will have a table there with our pamphlet and with information to give out and things like that, just to give a broad level of awareness. And that's in addition to more typical means like on television and on radio and billboards and things like that. And what we're trying to do is just capture the attention, because you can't tell somebody what human trafficking is on a billboard.
Right.
But what we want to do is get their attention and then direct them to a good place, a good source of information. So the commission has a page on the county website. So if anybody wants to Google Pasco County human trafficking, our webpage will come up, and there's tons of resources on there for parents and teachers and, people who want to put events together and things like that, for them to learn more about what human trafficking is and how they can play a role in combating it. There's a lot of myths and misconceptions about what human trafficking is. And so it's important that people get information from the right places, and not necessarily from social media or from more fear-based media outlets and things like that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think a lot of times it's better to just get it from the source, right? Get the good facts of the people who are actually involved in it, for the people that actually know the statistics, for the people that actually know the statistics and what's going on, and then the proper ways to raise awareness and really be able to protect our children or our family members or anyone that we know going forward. Because there's so much information out there. And I think a lot of people, if they get so passionate about it, it's just such a hot topic, and then it could just go off in different directions. So that's why I was really excited to have you ladies here on the show, to be able to kind of shed light on, what is really happening, and, get some of the facts. And get some really good information from you. As women, we rarely put ourselves first. Isn't it time to pamper yourself? I want to tell you about Bella Body Contouring Spa, an unrivaled health spa located in Trinity, Florida. Bella Body Contouring offers an exclusive collection of non-invasive body contouring services that will help you achieve your body contouring goals. Through advanced techniques and the use of FDA-approved technology, their team of technicians delivers high-end results at the level care you need. Their services are designed to tighten, smooth, reduce, and renew your skin so you can get back to life feeling your best. Be bold, feel free, and beautiful, and leave confident. Mention this ad and take 10% off any service. This is one of the big things that a lot of our parents probably want to know. Maybe we think that we know what it is, or maybe there's some that are super protective and maybe they overlook and they're just always like looking for things. There are indicators that we can look for, right? In our kids or maybe somebody that we know or anyone that's within our neighborhood. What are some indicators that people can look for that maybe we can tell if someone is, in duress or just I'll be perfectly honest. I don't even know how to ask this question because there's indicators that could tell us if a child is in danger, but then we also want to know what the indicators are as far as what to look for so we can maybe prevent something from happening as well.
Right.
Yeah, actually, can I jump in real quick right before Jessica gets started with the indicators, just to give a brief definition of what human trafficking is for people who just have very little to no awareness of what does this even look like in the United States. So the human trafficking has a lot of different forms. It's not just labor trafficking. It's not just sex trafficking. There are many different forms of human trafficking that exist globally. The Commisssion here, we primarily focus on sex trafficking and labor trafficking. And so for a crime to be considered human trafficking in the United States, if somebody is over the age of 18, let's just focus on sex trafficking for now, because I think that's what this podcast is primarily about here. If for somebody who's over the age of 18, if they are participating in a commercial sex act, so providing a sexual service in return for something of value, and they are operating under force, fraud, or coercion, that's considered a crime of human trafficking. So if somebody else is forcing them, have defrauded them, or is coercing them by their words, by threats, by drugs, whatever it is, and they're participating in a commercial sex act, that's considered a crime of human trafficking. For somebody who's under the age of 18, just providing an act of commercial sex is considered a crime of human trafficking. So if you have a 14, 15, 16-year-old who is providing sexual acts in return for anything of value, that is considered by federal law a crime of human trafficking. So I just wanted to kind of lay that out there before Jessica goes into indicators to look for.
Wow. I appreciate you clarifying that. And I think even that second part that you touched on with the fact that we look at it also as something where somebody is being forced or pressured to do something. And then a lot of times and you guys probably see this more often than none, but where people are feeling it's more of an innocent type thing. It's not like a scary pressure thing, but they're getting something in return, like you're saying. And in their mind, it's not, it's not like a bad thing. So it's.
Yeah. Oftentimes victims of human trafficking do not identify as victims of human trafficking.
Right.
They don't at the time that it's happening see themselves as being victimized because there is something in it for them. It may be something very small,
right.
But they see that there is something in this. Maybe that's safety. Maybe that's a bed to sleep in. Maybe that's getting out of my abusive parents' household or whatever. So outsiders looking in are saying, no, that's not worth what you're giving up for
right.
it. You're being exploited. They don't necessarily see themselves in that way until maybe many years later. And then they can look back and say, oh, wow, I really did not have any power or control that I was taught that I believed that I had.
That's just so much bigger than now. I'll be honest, even with what I was thinking, because the general, I would say, and maybe I'm just speaking for myself or I might be speaking for other people, but the general population really looks at it as a child was kidnapped and then they're being sold as a sex slave. I think that's like the main thing, but I appreciate you clarifying that and making it, that makes it even more real and more common that that's happening. So thank you so much.
And going kind of right into what Stephanie was saying about like even just the vulnerabilities. So we tend to see some of the victims are people, like she mentioned, about trying to get out of the house where there's abuse happening, or they're foster care children, or they have low self-esteem. Those are all those kind of things that's what that trafficker is looking for, because they can prey on them more easily. Wow. And so that's what can be kind of that scary, if they're running away, then they're on the street. And so they're going to provide them, like, I can give you a house, I can give you food, and, these kind of things. And again, they're looking at it as innocence of, oh, they're just helping me, not seeing the bigger picture of what's actually happening to them.
Wow. Okay. So, so obviously, some indicators might be obvious and some are not.
Right.
So, if you can touch on some of those for us.
The biggest thing I want parents to take away, though, is that parents need to pay close attention to social media and their children's apps on their phones, because that is, again, it's not the stranger danger of, some random person. It's oftentimes people that are already being into the homes through the social media, gaming devices, apps on their phone. So it's being aware of what your child is doing and what those apps are. Because you don't know who is on the other end speaking to them, just like they don't know either, who can easily be saying that they're that 14-year-old girl and it can really be a 30-year-old man or something. So it's just being aware of that, because those lies and the false information, again, is what's going to be what drives them to oftentimes innocently go, not realizing what's going to happen.
And if I could just add on to that just real quick, Jessica, just for an example, it's not uncommon for a trafficker to prey on an underage, let's just say girl, for example, although girls and boys both are trafficked, online, and develop a relationship and spend weeks or months developing a relationship and establishing a level of trust there. And so one method might be to ask for photos, explicit photos. And then, over time, maybe this young female sends the photos, and then this person will leverage that against her and say, if you don't do what I want you to do, I'm going to send these to your family or to your parents or to your whole school or things like that. And then that can parlay into a trafficking situation. That's just one way, but just to kind of give an example, a real life example of what Jessica's saying, that's how easy it is and how subtle it can be.
Wow. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, again, it's so scary, because it's, again, done in a manner that doesn't come out like where it's so aggressive necessarily, and then it turns into more. So they kind of do something little, and then it just escalates and escalates and escalates to where they are kind of out of control.
Yep.
But definitely for parents to make sure that they're looking, just again, watching their children, seeing if they are acting withdrawn, if they're having changes in their dress or demeanor, if they're getting, all of a sudden they have an extra phone, or they have different accessories that, maybe the parents ask, like, where did you get that? And kind of finding out if they're hanging out with new friends, because oftentimes we'll see that too, where, again, it may not be that like pimp that we're thinking of, that male figure. It could actually be other girls that are infiltrating and getting them to be like, hey, you're my friend. Hey, here's what I've been doing, and getting this. And then they innocently, again, kind of join thinking, oh, my friend is doing this. And it turns into something bigger as well. And we've actually seen that happen too, where in the schools, we've had girls that have been doing that, where they'll try to recruit other girls. So again, it's just those things with boundaries and being aware kind of what's happening.
That's a reminder of a really big story that's been out there, right, in the media world, on a more famous, popular level, as far as how, you have someone that is a male but trying to recruit younger girls, and then there's an adult female that is involved with that. But what happens is they recruit younger girls that, it makes them feel special, or they're pressured to do that. And then they go tell their friend, hey, come to this party with me, or do that. When you said that just reminds me of that bigger story that's been out there. It's kind of disappeared now, but
and one of those vulnerabilities that those people were exploiting was poverty. And so that's a vulnerability as well. It's like, oh, you can get $300 for doing this. And so that, to somebody in poverty who doesn't have any money, that's like, holy crap, just for that, and they don't realize the extent of the damage they're doing to themselves by going down that path. And then they're telling their friends, hey, you could make $300. And so that's, like Jessica said, it could start out innocently enough, but once you get into it, it becomes very difficult for people to find their way back out of it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I believe that.
And part of that too goes in with how you're kind of talking about that interaction online. It's where parents are also checking that you're checking your child's social media, that you're checking who they're talking to and what they're sharing, even what they're sharing on Facebook. Part of the schools, we do a digital citizenship, kind of talking about how your personal information that you put out there is easily accessible to people. So you're essentially showing them what your location is. You're providing them with very personal information. And again, I think children and teenagers do it innocently, not thinking big picture of what truly could happen.
Right.
And so kind of like you're talking about what's been going on in the world too, you think of like TV shows like You. As an example I always give to my students is, here's an example of a guy who she goes into the store, uses her credit card, he sees her name, looks her up online, and she's one of those people who posts everything online. So he's able to find out her whole routine.
Wow.
And then kind of infiltrates himself into her world innocently again, where she's just kind of like, oh, we're right into each other, when really he's been stalking her
Right.
and, figuring out when to come in. So again, it can be things like that you, again, aren't expecting because you're just posting things for your friends, but really who is seeing everything. So just kind of, again, those awareness things for families to make sure that they teach their kids.
On that topic of social media, I know that a lot of us parents are super proud of our kids, right? And some of us have private accounts, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or anything like that. And most of us have, public accounts. And even if it's private, you might have friends on there that you don't necessarily know that well. But honestly, there's a lot of us that will post things of, oh, he just made honor roll. And we know like where your kid goes to school and stuff like that. What would you say in that sense? I mean, I don't want to scare any of our listeners or anything like that, but I want it to be also a part of reality because, we want to share our kids' successes and we're proud of them with their sports teams and all of that stuff. But do you have anything to say as far as parents sharing that kind of information out there? Because now people know what school they go to, and like you're saying, when they infiltrate social media that way, they know what time you're sitting in the car loop waiting for them, what time you drop them off. They kind of get to know the parents' routine as well. And then you see, oh, okay, after school, this kid goes to soccer. Do you have anything to say on that topic as well as far as parent sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. You made a lot of good points. So I'm a parent as well. I mean, and I'm always very careful not to show the mascot of my kid's school or the name of their school or reference any of their teachers by name on social media. You can brag on your kids without giving away information that might put them in danger. And so definitely on that front, but also I'm beg of parents, please don't post pictures of your infant's potty training or in the bathtub or even newborns right when they're born. Like put a sticker over their private parts. Please, I know you think this is totally innocent and nobody's going to think, and it's a baby but I promise there's an appetite out there. Those pictures can easily be saved, put on the dark web, sold, and your child could be exploited just by the fact that you posted a potty training photo.
Right.
And I know that's awful to even think about. So yes, for older kids in terms of where their location is and sports teams and things like that, but also for the little kids and what we think is innocent, other people don't view as innocent and can exploit.
Yeah, and I've seen that before too, and I'm just like, why would they do that? But then it's like, do you say something to them? It's hard, but hopefully, moms, dads, if you're listening, maybe that might just be a good reminder.
I've sent private messages.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll send a private message and say, I know you probably didn't notice this, but a little bit of this is showing. I just wanted to let you know. And usually just saying that, they're like, okay. And they think about it in a different way and cover it up.
Good.
And I think it's important too, and I've seen it on social media too, where it's put in where you talk to your children about, who is going to be picking them up, who's not allowed to, and having almost, I've seen out online where they talk about having passwords. So like my daughter knows, she's not going to go to somebody that's giving her candy or the puppy, those normal stranger talks. But then even we tell her, even if somebody that we do know were to come, unless she knows that we've told her they're coming or they use that special word that we have, she would not go with them. So it's even having those, again, you're not trying to scare them, but it's just, again, about that safety of protecting them because there are, I've had to tell my daughter that there are bad people out in the world. And so it's just kind of, that protection factor for them.
And that's actually like an old school tradition, right? And I think some people, like you're saying, you still keep up with it and some people probably do, but I think we've kind of fallen away from doing that. And honestly, I think not to I'm going to put a little humor on it, but I think there was a comedian that said their password was, "Hey kid, want some candy?" So like if somebody said that, they could pick them up, but it's like, that's not funny. But that's also a really great reminder, because we really have to get focused, and we have to really start revisiting and looking at things that, we tend to kind of get comfortable and relaxed about.
Yeah. And kids, they might roll their eyes at you when you're, putting in all these ridiculous rules, but I think they also crave this feeling of protection. And like my kids, if I'm outside out back or whatever, and I'm not able to answer the door, they know they're not allowed to answer the front door. If anybody knocks, you don't open the door.
Mm-hmm.
Well, their grandma came over one day unannounced, and she's knocking and they're not letting her in the house. She ended up having to call me. She's like, "They won't let me in the house." And I said, "Okay, I'll talk to them." But they followed the rule.
Yeah.
I think they crave this idea that I'm being protected, and these are methods that I can help protect myself too.
And it's just that saying, better safe than sorry, right? And I think that's so good that they're following the rules. Right. And we want to know, like, how, speaking of that topic, talking to the kids and having these code words, before we go into the resources of how our listeners can find you and get in touch and find all of the resources, can you tell us really quick and really brief on just really how to approach that as talking to your kids about this topic?
So basically, it kind of talks about, and I've had parents say, like, what age? So obviously you want to kind of gauge that. My 4-year-old, I'm not talking to her about sex trafficking, but I'm talking to her about what we're talking about, like passwords, and that people are not going to just take her and those kind of things, and that there are bad people. So we have those conversations. Once she gets a little bit older, it's kind of more around that puberty age that you want to start talking to them more a little bit in depth about it, of what's happening. And that's when schools are going to be addressing it as well. But you want to kind of explain to them, the biggest thing is trusting their own gut of what they feel is uncomfortable. Like a prime example, my daughter went with us to the airport, and there was a guy who started talking to her in like a Donald Duck voice. And again, I think he honestly was doing it innocently to kind of like try to get her to laugh,
right.
But she was so scared, and she was like holding on to me. I got out of line because I could tell she was very uncomfortable. And so we talked about that, and she was like, "Why was he doing that? Why did he think that was funny?" And so I kind of had that conversation with her that there's going to be people like that, and that feeling that she felt is important to know how she felt, because if she ever feels that way again, I want her to do the same thing. Come and find us, don't go with them, kind of walk away, or, she kept on looking at him too, kind of like, "What are you doing?" But those are kind of those things to tell your child, that they're going to probably feel something, that they're going to feel that kind of sense of creepiness, and that uncomfortable is what you want them to kind of recognize and be able to come and talk to you about that right away.
Awesome.
Yeah. And just to add to that, and that it's okay not to listen to a grown-up sometimes if you're feeling that way.
Okay, good.
That you have somebody trusted that you can go and talk to. But, oftentimes with this type of abuse and exploitation, it's somebody that the kid knows.
Right.
And so I talk to my kids about, like, I'll just check in with them every once in a while. Like, "So how you feeling about everybody in your life? Anybody, you feel yucky around anybody? How, has anything weird happened?" Just
Good,
kind of
yeah.
like phrasing it a different way so that they know that they can come to somebody and won't be judged, no matter what they say about it.
And even younger children too, you can have kind of that privacy, so my daughter knows, like, nobody should be seeing her privates except for, the certain people. And so at her checkup, the doctor wanted to see her privates, and she looked at me, and the doctor was like, "Oh, it's okay, I'm the doctor." And so I reiterated, "Yes, doctor." There's another person I forgot to add, but yes, a doctor can, because they're examining you. But she did. She was like not pulling down her pants. She was kind of looked at me like, "You told me only certain people." So it's, having those kind of conversations with your child. So you're not scaring them. You're just, again, teaching them to protect themselves. And
yes, extremely, extremely important. I feel like we could talk about this for hours, and I definitely hope that we can have you ladies back here on the show and revisit some of these exact topics, and even some other topics on the human trafficking aspect. I did have a few questions. We kind of touched on it during our conversation, and I think we talked about the thing about being a child being in duress, but are there signs that maybe somebody can look for, or is there something that if they see something, then, that's an indication that maybe something is happening?
I would say biggest thing, and Stephanie can add too, is I think any changes that you see in their behavior. Like if you're seeing that they were very happy and, attended school every day and were into all these activities. And now all of a sudden they become very withdrawn. They're wanting to go out with their friends all the time. They're more so than a typical teenager, but like they're doing things that are beyond what was normal for them. Those are kind of warning signs. Because again, oftentimes, I mean, honestly, they're not going to necessarily see themselves as being victimized. So it's not going to be like somebody with physical abuse that you kind of are going to see bruises necessarily. You might see some marks on them, but you're not going to typically see like what you would for somebody who's suffering from, physical abuse.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, I think it has some similarities with teenagers experiencing depression. So there's this withdrawn, quiet, maybe wants to sleep a lot, just like bags under the eyes, kind of depressed looking states, which can be confusing for parents because you're like, is this just a teenager thing?
Right.
Is this a mental thing? What's going on here? Is this stress from school? So you just kind of have to keep aware. But some other things would be either an older or a dominating romantic partner. So if it's a female, then a boyfriend who is isolating them. She's not hanging out with her friends anymore. She's only with the boyfriend. She's not allowed to hang out with her friends. Things like that. Dressing overly sexual. If a child or a, teen or preteen didn't dress sexually and then all of a sudden is dressing like that, I think that's definitely a red flag. Spending a ton of time on the phone and being very private about what's happening on their phone, or like Jessica said earlier, a new phone that shows up, a new method of communicating that you're like, I didn't buy that for you. Who got that for you? And why? And let me see it. And I want the password,
Right.
Also new items that show up. So how are you getting your nails done? How did you get highlights in your hair or whatever it is? Like if it seems like there's an influx of money coming in or items and you don't have real explanation, that could be a warning sign. I think grades and a change of friends, and drug use. Drug use could be a big one as well. Substance use of any kind. So I think those are some things.
Okay. And then also we touched on that topic about how you were saying, like, if kids have attitude, like I know you're telling me this over and over again. Somebody did ask, how do you respond to the eye rolls when they're talking to their kid about this topic and they're like, yeah, mom, I know. Is there like a good way to respond to that?
I think it's just kind of anything like a parent does. You're going to get those eye rolls. You're going to get that of like, yes, I've heard this 100 times, but you just keep doing it.
Okay.
Because like I even think back to my mom telling me certain things, like it didn't click until maybe later on, or when I actually went through something that I was kind of like, oh, mom, you had said that, or, or it's her voice in my head of like what she had said 100 times. So that initial reaction that they're hearing might be that rolling of eyes or, oh, I'm done hearing this, but it's still getting into their head so that if something potentially were to happen, they can kind of have that of, oh, mom said that, or
Good, yeah.
Yeah. And I think taking the opportunity when specific examples arise in their life, a friend might be going through something, or like my kids are middle school age. So we've had conversations, but not in detail, like for an older teenager. But one of their prior teachers ended up getting busted for child pornography, and it was this whole hubbub in the school and everything. And I took that opportunity to sit down with them and say, okay, so you remember what I was telling you about being da 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 da? Like this is a specific example of this happening. And so it really drives it home when there's either shows or movies or people in their lives in some way or another that they can connect these ideas of safety and danger and what could happen to real life situations.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then the last question is, are there any volunteer opportunities for high school students with the Commisssion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good.
I'm looking at Liana, our chairperson over there. She's always looking. Yeah, absolutely. We've worked with high school students before. We love working with high school students. We love letting them use their creativity and their perspective to guide the work they do in terms of human trafficking. So we would much rather have a high school student come and create an initiative for other students than us try to create one. Yeah. So we welcome it.
Awesome.
And in the past, there was a group of high schoolers that did have like a club. They're the ones who made the posters that are in the schools. And then they graduated, so it kind of fell apart. But that would be something definitely, we were actually kind of already been talking about that, trying to get something like that started again, whether it's at each individual school or a county, regional thing. So we've kind of already had that kind of in discussion about that. So
yeah, that's great. That's really good to know. So I definitely know I have some moms to talk to about that as well. So that's really great. I just want to say thank you so much to the both of you for joining us today on the Happy Girl podcast. It really makes my heart happy to have you here to share this information with our listeners. I do want to have you tell me one quick thing. I know we got to get going, and then you can give us all your information. Can you just tell me? I would love to hear from the both of you of what sparks happiness for you.
Definitely for me and my daughter. I had longed to have a daughter, or really any child, but definitely a daughter, for many, many years. And so through the foster care system, being able to adopt her has been the biggest blessing. And seeing her in school, and she's in gymnastics and dance and t-ball, and seeing her in all these different things, it warms my heart.
So sweet.
That is so sweet and so sentimental. I was totally going to go with wine, but
I know wine sparks happiness for me too. Okay.
But I'll do well here. Of course, number one, my children. Ditto. But we just bought a house, and it has a jacuzzi tub, which I've never had before. And so my husband and I have agreed, like, the jacuzzi tub is what made the house. So getting a glass of wine in the tub, I'm like, I'll spend however much money I need to buy a house if it has a jacuzzi tub.
Yes.
And my kids.
But really, it's wine. Well, thank you so much, Jessica and Stephanie. And I would love for our listeners to find a way to find out about Pasco County Commission on Human Trafficking, how they can get some more information and some more resources. Where can they get all of that from?
Absolutely. So we have a Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The handle is at No More Pasco, at KNOWMOREPASCO, No More Pasco. And then we also have a website. It's got a long handle. So just Google Human Trafficking Pasco County. You'll find our website, and there's tons of resources and information there.
Awesome. I love that. Thanks again for joining us. And hopefully we can get together again really soon and touch on more topics. And ladies, if you want to reference the show and so much more, head on over to happygirlpodcast.com. I'm over here giving you the biggest virtual hug because you just finished another episode of the Happy Girl podcast. Wow. Did that just go by way too fast? If you want more, head over to happygirlpodcast.com for show notes and discount codes from all of the sponsors. And if you're looking for a tribe of women just like you to bounce ideas and ask questions, be sure to join my exclusive community on Facebook. The link is waiting for you at happygirlpodcast.com.